Hi everybody, Brian from Steeda, discussing the 2018 intake manifold swap for Coyote-equipped Mustangs, specifically the S197 model years 2011 to 2014, as well as the S550 model years 2015 to 17. What did it make? 20, 30, 40, 3 horsepower? Oh man, stay tuned. With each evolution of vehicle and engine, we see progress, we see refinements, and we see additional horsepower and torque. Of course, that's most important to us. We'll start with the Gen 1 Coyote in the 2011 to 2014 Mustang S197 models. And the Coyote really changed that car pretty dramatically. Then into the Gen 2 engine for the 15 to 17 Mustang, it evolved even more, gained more horsepower, gained more torque, and some more RPM up top. Then came the Gen 3 Coyote. And with it came additional horsepower and additional torque. And you see where we're going here as this progress has happened. And the 2018 intake manifold has been quite a craze. In fact, we've seen this happening since the 60s, where you take a larger intake manifold, put it on a car that previously had a smaller, more restrictive manifold, and it makes power. So is that true for this? Well, yeah, I mean, it really does make some power. And we really want to talk about where these advantages will work best for you, where we've noticed the power gains, because it's important to note that as great as the 2018 intake manifold is it ultimately suitable for you? We know this thing draws a wide audience, and immediately you F-150 owners are probably asking the question, why didn't you mention us? It's not personal, honest. The reality is that we want to recommend this for certain applications, and the F-150 simply isn't one of them. Now, if it's a full custom build, you're doing cams and you're modifying the truck to ultimately rev much higher, then great, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. The reality is that the engine was equipped differently than the Mustang engine. It won't make use of the shorter runners on this manifold as well as, well, it would the stock manifold. So it's going to make more torque and horsepower, usable horsepower earlier with the stock manifold. So I hate to disappoint you. This is something we wouldn't recommend for you F-150 owners. All right, now back to the Mustang guys. We're going to kind of go along with this F-150 thing a little bit too. For you S197 guys, some of you should heed the same advice we're giving to the F-150 owners. If your car is a 6R80 equipped vehicle, meaning it has an automatic transmission, and you still have the stock torque converter, again, proceed with caution. And we're going to get more into this in just a moment. But the reality is that you don't want to spin that factory torque converter up to too high of an RPM. Otherwise, sometimes some bad things can happen. So who in the world is this manifold good for? I mean, let's face it, in the 15 to 17 model cars, comparing the two, one to another on the exact same car, and we saw 3 horsepower gain. Go ahead and comment below. Blow us up. Comment below. I dare you. The reality is we saw 3 horsepower gain up until the factory red line on the 15 to 17. The same thing has been true for the 11 to 14s. A little bit of a gain, but nothing too crazy until you get to higher RPM. So here's where this thing kicks in. So many of you have read 30, 40, 50 horsepower. Holy cow, people are trying to sell you on something. The reality is that the tune makes the biggest difference. RPM makes the biggest difference. If your car is a street car and you're just cruising around, putzing around, if you like the look of the manifold, which again, it looks like a manifold, great, that's fine, do what you want to do, it's your car. If you're looking for performance, understand that performance is really going to start to shine above 6,000 RPM. F-150 guys, you don't typically see that. S197 automatic guys, well, if you build that transmission, you're going to the drag strip or road racing the car quite a bit, then you're going to see that all the time. There is benefit to this thing, and it makes a lot of power beyond the factory red line. So again, we want to make sure that we're dispelling any sort of, well, sales pitch here in what you're getting. It does make a great impact and a great improvement in those higher RPM ranges. So those of you that are getting out and autocrossing and driving the snot out of your car, this absolutely is something you want to do. If you're drag racing and constantly winding the car up in the RPM band, if you've installed cams, oh man, comp cams in particular, you want the extra flow of the intake manifold, especially because you're going to be living at the higher RPM range so often. And as noted, the tune is what's so important. For you S197 guys, this is a pretty straightforward installation, but you would need to get yourself some IMRC lockouts. The IMRC is the intake manifold runner control. There are intake runners inside this that are vacuum controlled and ultimately open and close depending on vacuum that's coming from the engine. And well, as obviously they open, it shortens the runners, that's where you get your high RPM use. Well, the S197 had a single stage manifold from the factory. So to put a dual stage manifold like this onto the early cars doesn't work so well. So you have to lock out the IMRC. Because of this, we actually would definitely recommend that you take a look at the Boss 302 intake manifold. That is a single stage manifold, also provides high RPM usage, and it's a very similar price point to the 18 Plus manifold. Not saying, again, you can't do it. Some of you have different options or different things that you're after. Maybe you've reached out to Brett Barber or Auto Mafia as far as porting the manifold and you're good to go. But just keep in mind, for the S197, you will need IMRC lockouts. For you S550 guys, 15 to 17 owners, the car already has a dual stage intake manifold on it. The advantage of going to the 2018 manifold isn't at the lower RPM. In fact, it's going to drive nearly identical. And this is why we said for a street cruiser, it doesn't make as big of a difference to you. But for those of you that are really winding out the cars, you're taking above 67, 6,800 RPM, it really ultimately gives you another 700 or 800 RPM to work with beyond where the factory manifold was. Because the 2018 Plus intake manifold is also a dual stage, we definitely recommend retaining that. And one of the pieces that we offer is VMP's wiring kit. It's a plug and play kit to help convert your 2018 intake manifold to the setup that's originally on your 15 to 17. Now this manifold will ultimately require a tune because the sensors on the IMRCs, the intake manifold runner control system, will ultimately trigger a check engine light. So you will want to run a tune, plus you want to be able to take advantage of the additional RPM and the airflow you're going to get at those higher RPM. So again, definitely do a tune with this swap. Otherwise, it is a direct replacement. Bring your throttle body right over to this manifold, and even the intake that you're already running, the cold air intake, and we're hoping it's a Steeda closed air box, but the reality is you can retain the intake that you're running. And that's one of the reasons why this intake has been so popular. It's priced extremely well. It's a direct bolt-on. It's compatible with so many different cold air kits. Again, we hope that you're utilizing ours, but we know there's other items out there. And again, nice pieces that this will work with. And it's really straightforward as far as installation. It's pretty clean. You do need to keep in mind that your engine cover and some other things really can't be utilized once you put this on. But if you're getting to this point of performance and growing and evolving with your car, probably not using that engine cover anyway. So there you have it, the manifold of manifolds, 1,000 horsepower guaranteed. All right, slow down. The reality is we wanted to dispel a lot of rumors. There's a lot of people out there selling things, crazy amounts of horsepower. And the reality is tune for tune, up until about 6,700 RPM, there's very little difference between this and the 15 to 17 manifold. You S197 guys, you're gonna pick up a little bit more in the earlier RPM, but the reality is you may still wanna consider that Boss 302 manifold. Otherwise, if you're gonna do this, make sure you get the lockouts. 15 to 17 guys, make sure you get the VMP harness. Utilize all the drivability of the 15 to 17 manifold in the 18 Plus manifold as well. Keep that additional runner control, intake runner control, active. And this is a great manifold and a great purchase for those of you living in that higher RPM range. And let's face it, that's all of us that are racing, road racing, autocrossing, and drag racing. If it's drag racing or road racing or autocrossing, you ultimately have times when you need to wind out that gear a little bit longer, or possibly short shifts that you're not changing gears mid-corner. Having a wider power band will benefit you, ultimately more usable power and making the car a little bit easier to drive. Making it easier to drive means that you as a driver will ultimately be faster. That's especially if you're autocrossing and road racing the car. Drag racing, again, you're gonna wanna wind it out as long as you can so that you're staying in that really narrow point of the power band where the car is traveling the fastest, accelerating the fastest to bring those ETs down and those trap speeds up. This is a great time for you to tell us which manifold you've chosen, what kind of power you're making, and well, what are you doing with your car? We love reading what our viewers are doing because it's such a great way for us to learn as a company, well, how our customers are using the parts that we're offering. And the reality is, within our own cars, we ultimately want to keep getting faster and faster. We want to improve them and make them better. We also want to share products with you that do the same. So your feedback is incredible. Definitely post below and give some of our viewers something to read for sure. Or give us a call. We're happy to discuss our experiences with you, the benefits and what might suit you best for your vehicle. To learn more about this and many of the other great products we offer for the Mustang and other Ford vehicles, visit us at Steeda.com. To see the latest and greatest things that we're up to with our cars, check us out on social media. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. Steeda. Speed matters.